Once upon a time, in a distant kingdom, there ruled a wise and just king named King Cedric. His kingdom, known as Serenica, was prosperous and peaceful, but the king had a deep secret that he wanted to share with his people, a secret to true happiness. King Cedric had always been known for his kindness and generosity. He had ruled Serenica for many years, and the people adored him. Yet, despite his outward success, the king often felt a profound sense of emptiness within himself. He couldn't help but wonder if there was more to life than just being a king. One bright morning, King Cedric summoned his most trusted advisors to his majestic palace. He had decided that it was time to reveal his secret to happiness to his people. He believed that by sharing his wisdom, he could bring even greater prosperity to Serenica and ensure the happiness of his subjects. As the advisors gathered in the Grand Council chamber, King Cedric began to speak. "My dear advisors," he said, "I have long harbored a secret that I believe can bring true happiness to our kingdom. Today, I wish to share this secret with you and, eventually, with all of our people." The advisors leaned forward in anticipation as the king continued, "The secret to happiness, my friends, lies not in material wealth or power, but in the simple act of giving. It is through acts of kindness, generosity, and compassion that we can find the truest form of happiness." One of the advisors, a wise and elderly man named Advisor Marcus, spoke up. "Your Majesty, you have always been known for your generosity, but could you please elaborate on how giving can lead to happiness?" King Cedric nodded and began to share his personal journey. "Many years ago, I too was consumed by the pursuit of wealth and power. I believed that acquiring more and more would bring me happiness. However, no matter how much I amassed, I always felt a void within me. It was as if something essential was missing from my life." The king continued, "One day, I happened upon a beggar on the streets of Serenica. He was hungry and cold, and his eyes reflected the pain of his life. I couldn't ignore his suffering, so I gave him some of my own food and warm clothing. In that moment, I saw a glimmer of happiness in his eyes, and I felt something change within me as well." King Cedric paused, lost in thought, before continuing, "From that day forward, I began to seek opportunities to help those less fortunate. I discovered that the joy I felt when I gave to others was unlike any other pleasure I had ever experienced. It was a profound and lasting happiness that filled the void in my heart." Advisor Marcus nodded in understanding. "Your Majesty, your story is truly inspiring. But how can we, and the people of Serenica, find this happiness through giving?" The king smiled warmly and replied, "It is quite simple, my dear advisors. To find happiness through giving, we must first open our hearts to the needs of others. We must be attentive to the suffering and hardships of our fellow citizens, and then we must take action to alleviate their pain. Whether it is through a kind word, a helping hand, or a charitable donation, every act of giving can bring us closer to happiness." The advisors were moved by the king's words and felt a deep sense of purpose. They began to discuss ways in which they could implement this philosophy throughout the kingdom. Over the following weeks, the people of Serenica witnessed a remarkable transformation in their leaders. The advisors, inspired by the king's secret to happiness, embarked on various initiatives to improve the lives of their subjects. They organized food drives, established shelters for the homeless, and created programs to provide education and job opportunities to those in need. As word of these initiatives spread throughout the kingdom, the people themselves began to embrace the idea of giving. Neighbors helped neighbors, strangers helped strangers, and the sense of community in Serenica grew stronger with each passing day. King Cedric watched with pride as his people found happiness through giving. He knew that he had made the right decision in sharing his secret, and he was grateful for the positive changes he saw in his kingdom. Years passed, and Serenica continued to flourish, not only in material wealth but also in the happiness and well-being of its citizens. The kingdom became known throughout the land as a place where kindness and generosity were cherished above all else. One day, as King Cedric walked through the streets of his capital city, he encountered the same beggar who had inspired his journey toward happiness. The beggar, now elderly and frail, was no longer on the streets but had found shelter and a purpose in life. Tears welled up in the beggar's eyes as he recognized the king. "Your Majesty," he said, "you changed my life that day when you showed me kindness. You gave me hope, and I will be forever grateful." King Cedric smiled and replied, "It was you who changed my life as well, my friend. You taught me the true secret to happiness, and I am thankful for the opportunity to share it with my kingdom." And so, the wise and just King Cedric continued to rule Serenica, knowing that the secret to happiness lay not in the trappings of power, but in the simple act of giving. His kingdom remained a beacon of compassion and generosity, a place where happiness flowed freely, and where the legacy of kindness endured for generations to come.